going to talk about releve. So releve is a very common ballet movement. It's one of the 7 basic movements of ballet, of dance, and is done in all positions: single leg, double leg. On point, it would be point. In flat shoes, it would be demi-point, right? But some of the biggest things you'll see with releve is that excessive winging, or in ballet we'd call that beveling, right? So the ankle goes out. You'll see this usually actually more with your professional or older dancers because it is more aesthetically pleasing, right? Or it's a line that they want to create. And you can also see, if you look at their point shoes, right? You'll oftentimes see that where the big toe is, well, the shoe, like if you put the shoe up, it will sit like this, right? Because they are, let's see what foot is this? They're like this in their shoe all the time, right? They're pushing over that way. So you can tell them, look, that's fine, but when you're not weight bearing, right? So when the leg is in arabesque, which is out to the back, fine, bevel your foot all you want. But when you're weight bearing on your foot, then it needs to be straight, right? Because otherwise you're placing a lot of stress through those medial ligaments of your ankle. And then sickling, or excessive inversion, right? That's usually not at the professional level so much. You do see it sometimes. And it's oftentimes when they're trying to point more, right? Because the more you plantar flex, the more you're going to supinate, right? So you'll see it there. But beginner dancers on point, especially if they don't have the necessary plantar flexion range, will go into quite a bit of sickling, is what it's called in ballet. So make sure that the reason that you check why, right? Because if they do not have the range at their ankle to get up onto point, well, how are they going to get that, right? So there's something called the pencil test. Have you guys heard of that? Right? So it's basically you have them point their foot and you place a pencil on top. Is it straight, right? If there's any space between the pencil and the ankle, then they don't have the range to be on point. Right? Which, yeah, that's a whole another topic, but the range that is required to be on point is way past normal range, right? It's 90 degrees minimum just to get up. So that can be a difficult conversation sometimes if you got to be careful. Generally, if they don't have that range, they're not going to go on to be in a professional ballet company. But they can still dance. Right? Just if they're getting injuries, you may want to just talk to them and maybe their parents about how wise it is to actually be on point, right? Because they don't actually have the range to get up and over. And then when you've got the extreme, the other dancer that you saw with those feet, you've got to make sure they actually take a bit longer. Sometimes it's better to hold them back. They're usually the ones that get put on point first, because the teachers are like, oh, wow, beautiful feet. You need point shoes. But they do not have the control to actually control that amount of motion. So I find it's actually better to wait longer for those kids to go on point. And then how you sew the ribbons, right, is usually with the elastic on the point shoe, it's, towards the heel. But with those kids, put the elastic a little bit further forwards towards the arch, so that it catches them a little bit, right? So they don't basically fall out of their shoes. And making sure they're not in dead shoes is super important as well.